Welcome to another episode of All Business No Bull. I'm Don Carlos. Today we have the pleasure of interviewing as our special guest Mr. Randall Mauldin of SCALEHOUND.AI. Look forward to an absolutely fascinating discussion of all aspects of AI regarding business and pretty much everything else. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Randy, I'm super happy to have you here as a special guest. And when Rebecca told me so, and that she sent me some of your information, I just couldn't wait to sit down and talk with you. And of course, prior to the recording, we started chatting, and I felt an immediate connection. Now, AI, very, very important. I think it's very important. Just to give you a little anecdote of how useful I think it is. My daughter Rebecca yesterday was at the gas station. We related the story. I'm just re-relating for the audience, and the gas covering wouldn't open, and so she called me, and the bottom line is that she actually got her solution from AI in terms of how to get it open, and she immediately told me that that's a great story to share with Randy.
Oh, that's great. I think it illustrates how AI is in our world.
Yeah.
It's already influencing, and people don't realize how much it's involved even in their business. You know, from a business perspective, one of the things we've started to focus on is AI ownership, and a very simple question of who owns AI in your business. And people will say, well, nobody, we're not using AI yet. You know, we haven't authorized, we don't know what AI is. And then we ask a real simple question. Well, which email platform do you use? Outlook or Google? So when you open an email, does the platform suggest to you a response? Of course, the answer is yes. And it's like, okay, you are using AI, whether you realize it or not. These platforms have already installed AI on your day-to-day platform that you use every single day. And it's already learning about your company and what you do. So who owns how AI is influencing the results it's giving you?
Do you think that business Americanus as a whole truly recognizes the value of AI? Now, that's a loaded question. It's not a trick question, because there's many aspects, many industries, many sectors. So it's always it depends answer, right? But as a whole, do you think they really recognize the revolutionary aspect of AI, or do you think they're approaching it slowly? Maybe even too slowly.
They're approaching it based on what they're seeing, and this goes all the way back to Terminator, way back when Arnold Schwarzenegger, did his first movie, and so there's fear against AI, and people don't understand it. They don't realize the impact that it can have positively, because they're more concerned about the negative aspects. And when you look at certain studies that are out there, or articles that have been written about the world and how they're perceiving AI, Asian cultures are adopting AI and using it and running with it like there's no tomorrow. The European cultures they see AI, they use it for what it's good for, and then Western cultures, America especially, is afraid of it to where they don't even want to use it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've given it quite a bit of thought. And it's not only the elephant in the room, but now it's the elephant that everyone sees and talks about. Even to the point where Elon Musk, and you know what we're getting, he openly says that it's a clear and present danger, if not now, in the future.
Right.
On the other hand, as I was thinking about our upcoming talk, which is taking place, of course, right now, there's a yin and yang to everything. And so Americans by nature have been very isolationist in terms of foreign entanglements, in spite of all of our current foreign entanglements, right? But that's another conversation. The common American, I think, is wary of foreign entanglements, and I think the whole conspiracy idea is related to that. On the other side, though, since the time of the pharaohs, right? Human beings have been looking for some kind of plausible deniability every time, and they take action, and there's an outcome which is not favorable to them. And I'm wondering if AI is just another one of those excuses. Now, I don't think it's as simple as that, as a binary solution, that it's either AI is conspiratorial or it's not. Because on the other hand, information, propaganda, advertising, marketing is a very, very powerful instrument. It all kind of comes down to whether we have free will or not, and degrees of free will, in my opinion. And I was hoping you might be able to give us your sage opinions on something like that.
Well, you mentioned a couple things in that conspiracy and influence. And, is that AI is already here and influencing things. Yeah. And if something is going wrong, we want to blame somebody. Mm-hmm. If something's going right, we're very happy with it. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned before, AI is already on and in your business, whether you realize it or not, whether you formally adopted an AI application or you're just using Outlook or Google Workspace. Mm-hmm. It's already in there, but it's already influencing. So, let's kind of tell a story. Mm-hmm. You have a customer receptionist or somebody, a sales guy who receives an email. Mm-hmm. It's a Friday afternoon. It's 4:00, and he's got he's getting ready to go out for a long weekend with his family, and so he needs to write a reply to this customer because it's instant response. So he says, okay, well, he clicks over and sees Copilot or Gemini, and he says, write me a response. Mm-hmm. That system writes him a response. It sounds good, better than he ever could have written. He says, okay, send it. Well, what influenced that response? Mm-hmm. And that's where we need to understand how AI operates, in that AI, large language models, were originally trained with data up until 2021. Mm-hmm. Any data, anything that was on the internet, anything you could find was there. And then from there, it's been trained on how people use it and what people put into it. So as a company business owner, that salesperson who sent that email, the question we should ask is, well, what influenced that response? Mm-hmm. Because when the customer receives that email, if they like the response, they'll call back and they'll set an appointment. If they don't like that response, they're going to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. But we have no control over what that response was, even though we can control it through training the AI performance, putting instructions in the AI platforms that we own, that we already own. You already pay for it, sitting on your computer right now. Mm-hmm. Everyone, listening, look at your upper right-hand corner. You're going to see either a blue star or a rainbow diamond. And that's Copilot or Gemini. So it's already learning your company. It's already learning things. It's already being influenced by something. Mm-hmm. And the way to imagine a large language model is think of a data lake with the data that's in there. And then since it started, people started putting their own fish, their own data, their own fish in that lake. And as that data has been put together, you start to see crossbreeding and new breeds of fish. Mm-hmm. To where you can go in and say, okay, write a response for this email. Well, based on what the AI sees, okay, it's about lawn service and on weekends. And so it goes into the data lake looking for lawn service and weekend service. And whatever's there is what it's going to grab, create a response, and then send it if you allow it to send it, and it's out there. But is it your brand? Is it your customer voice? Is it in alignment with your policies? When you have policies, how is that answer created and influenced before you send it? And we as business owners can control all this. Mm-hmm. But I think the point to be made is that it's already on your system. As I described, it's sitting there right now. These platforms, Microsoft and Google, have already installed it on the applications you use every single day. Mm-hmm. So it's learning how you do business. Every email you send, every document you write, every spreadsheet you analyze, it's looking at that system. You may not realize it. So it's learning how you do business, and it's also training the bigger LLM. Now, there's two differences. Microsoft doesn't allow your data to go to train their LLM, their large language model, their AI data lake. They don't allow your data to go into their lake. Other systems do, especially ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And then that even speaks to shadow AI. Mm-hmm. Meaning, as a business owner, have you allowed your employees to use AI? Mm-hmm. And big question. I've presented this concept probably 4 or 5 times in the last couple of weeks. And it's a very simple question of who owns AI in your company. And business owners, large company CEOs, Fortune 50 CEOs are like, I never thought of it that way.
You at the very beginning of your last comment, you mentioned something. Actually, you mentioned a few things, and I have to catalog them up here before I forget. At my age, sometimes I forget where I park my car. Right.
Right.
you spoke of information flows that are basically honest information flows. And I'm wondering if political leadership, not politics in terms of Washington, well, maybe that too, but politics within an organization is not, if they know that they're getting honesty at scale, if that would be something that they would be wary of bringing into their organization, and therefore, instead of a massive integration of AI, they relegate it to something about searching for information within, let's say, instead of using a knowledge center where you, like Google, where you have to look for keywords and then read through a dissertation to figure out an answer, where you just simply enter something like a ChatGPT at work. I'm wondering if they're relegating it down to something like that, watering it down to something like that, because if they get honesty at scale, then it might undermine their own positions or their own decision making. Do you think that's a reality?
My guess would be they have no idea what honesty is when it comes to the AI. It's like, who owns the result of the AI output?
Yeah.
And we'll call it honesty. We'll call it the answer the AI put there. But what information was put in the AI that allowed it to produce an answer? Was it a policy? Was it regulation? Was it historical data? What was that information? And, again, the simple question of, well, who owns AI in your company? And a lot they don't know. Well, IT owns it. No, IT gave you access to it. They're not responsible for the results produced by it, because that's governed by policy that you as a CEO put into the AI platforms. Is it hard to put in? Not really. It's really just asking those questions and then determining what's going to influence the honesty that you're going to get, to where, if they're afraid of, well, it's going to give us too honest an answer. It's like, well, okay, well, who's responsible for AI in your company? Well, is it IT? Now, don't remember, IT is responsible for giving you access and securing, but they don't influence how the AI is trained, because they're not experts in your operations or your finance or your customer service. They know how you can access it, but they can't give you they don't train the LLM to give you the answers. Does that make sense?
It does. And now you brought up something else, so I want to speak to that before I forget the other points. But I remember when I was on active service, for example, let's say I had a supply department in Djibouti, Africa. Every week we would have a weekly staff meeting with the CEO, commanding officer, and the XO. And I noticed consistently that there were two departments that were never picked on. And if there was some issue, the criticism was, I wouldn't say muted, but was much diminished. Whereas myself in supply, anyone could criticize the quality of food. Anyone could criticize levels of fuel received, whether it was diesel. Anyone could criticize whether we had ample hot water. You understand, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
These two areas were medical, and the other one was IT. And I pondered it, and I was wondering, well, how can these two departments get away with I wouldn't say infractions, but maybe missteps? Whereas if I did the same thing in a supply equivalency, I would be standing on the carpet,
right,
in front of the big man, right? And I gave it some thought, and then the answer that I came up to was information asymmetry. Why? Because the commanding officer, the executive officer, simply doesn't know enough about medicine or medical management, and they're not going to lose face doing that. And the other department was IT, and the same applies. And within a deployed setting or even non-deployed setting, you had the military members doing IT, and then there was after them was a contractor level, and then wherever their headquarters was in Tampa or Miami, wherever, right? And this was too much information, too much complexity for, let's say, a commanding officer who was a pilot or an engineer as well as his executive officer, who was maybe either a nuke or a pilot, to fathom, right? So they kind of gave him a free pass, right? The commanding officer couldn't very well go to the clinic on post and say, "Doc, you don't have enough esophageal airways," because he didn't know what an esophageal airway was.
Right.
For all he knew, could have been the name of an airline. Thank you for flying esophageal airways, right?
Yeah, right.
And so from then on, I'm approaching an issue in a very roundabout way, which is this. Do you think AI now is increasing this information asymmetry or reducing it, or maybe has no effect? Simply the lines have moved along in the same distance.
I would say that the lines are moving, whether people realize it or not, without control, because they don't know they don't understand AI or how it works within their business.
So it's not necessarily moving parallel, equidistant, but it's moving in a way that we can't see in terms of distances closing, distances opening.
Well, AI improves exponentially, not linearly. And you can just look at last year, as if you paid attention to the media, how often ChatGPT updated to a new version. And then Perplexity and Claude and Copilot and Microsoft also updated to a new version. And they would leapfrog each other. So Copilot, ChatGPT went to here. The next platform would go to here. And that next platform would go to here. And meanwhile, all the other platforms are learning from each other. They're all connected and influencing each other, including the DeepSeek, the Chinese version of ChatGPT, which when it first launched, ChatGPT was here. DeepSeek was here. Well, how did it do that? It learned from this platform and said, make it better. And it said, okay. And it went there. And then ChatGPT says, okay. And it goes here. So the point there is that this is not something to wait to figure out how it's going to settle down.
Because it'll never reach an equilibrium.
It's just going to continue to improve. And
in a quantum way.
Big time. I mean, it's just moving so fast. And that's one of the reasons, when we go into a company, we don't come in and say, you're going to use this platform. We come in and say, what's your problem? Who's responsible for the result? And then really drill down into the result they're trying to achieve.
All the more reason why if business, Americanus, doesn't fully embrace AI, they're going to become dinosaurs.
It's that they're just going to dinosaurs under terms of extinct.
Yeah.
And if a small business is like, well, it's a big business problem. What they fail to realize, and this is something to visualize, is due to AI, a large business can replicate a small business at scale. So imagine Amazon.com, and then all of a sudden you have the Amazon Basics brand within Amazon. What happened, right? And so we went to Amazon, we got pencils and pens and all these office supplies. And what Amazon learned was these are the products people want. So we're going to make an Amazon brand of this product. And now all of a sudden you go to Amazon, the pencil you used to buy was priced at $1. Amazon Basic is priced at 90 cents. Which do you choose? It's just the pencil.
Absolutely.
I'm going to go with the Amazon Basic. So now all of a sudden the pencil company, who had a great business on Amazon because they were the cheapest pencil, Amazon said, okay, you sell more pencils than anybody. We're going to sell pencils too, but just a little bit cheaper. Because we don't have to pay our own commission, right? And that's where AI is going. And that's where a small business, an insurance company, any, lawn service, insurance, roofing, any of these companies, all of a sudden, it's like, think about it, a large company, say, okay, well, model mirror that small business that's successful in that geographic area. And it just, when you go to the website, it's there. You say roofing company in Sanford, Florida. Okay. Not realizing that roofing company is really a face, a front to a larger company. And that's the potential. I haven't seen this yet. But you have large companies who are using ChatGPT. And that's a whole nother conversation is what kind of data can you mine from these open AI or these open source platforms where people are just throwing up data all day long. And that would probably be another conversation for us to have is what kind of intelligence, we call it competitive intelligence, which is one of the things that we'll do with a company. We'll say, if you want to go after a competitor, well, what can I find out about that competitor? Well, we go looking for it because why? Their employees are using these platforms with or without permission because these business owners, CEOs haven't told them they couldn't. those employees were still on the hook to deliver results at the fastest speed possible, at the best quality possible. And when they started using these AI platforms and they were getting it faster, astronomically faster, and better, because it was tapping into all this other information. But to get that good answer, they had to upload their own data. Mm-hmm. A good story, I had a couple of stories where it was a compliant-based company, think finance or insurance, and an agent wanted to basically learn, how can I close a deal with this company or this client? So they uploaded a policy into the large language model. Now just imagine that, though. You have an insurance or a financial company that has proprietary PII information. An agent who doesn't know any better because they weren't told no, took that information and uploaded it to ChatGPT.
Very naively.
Thinking they were doing the right thing. They were going to be able to produce a better result faster than they could ever produce on their own. And now that information is now in ChatGPT. Now I know that kind of client that person goes, and I want to find a similar client. I'd simply go to ChatGPT and put in a series of prompts, and I can find that information.
Really?
I can find that information. Not the specific PII Social Security number type information, but now I can model that information to go after similar clients that they're working on.
You know, just a few minutes ago, you referred to the direction that AI is taking us in. I remember years ago, I wrote an article on LinkedIn about what I call the retail apocalypse. And we talked a little bit about it before we started filming. And what I saw was this, is that my wife and I used to own a chain of retail franchises, and retail is a very tough business. Well, and so essentially, I'm not going to take you through the whole thing, but I was looking at a scenario where mom and pop across the board, especially retail, was going away, but at a very rapid rate. And being replaced by Walmart, being replaced by Costco, and similar. So it had already happened. I didn't come up with anything new. I just spoke more about it. And of course, this has all sorts of secondary, tertiary effects, and even beyond that, in terms of real estate, commercial real estate, and then. Add to that, I thought of my prior career in logistics, military logistics and supply, and how that was being married into that through, let's say, Amazon, with Amazon's work in last mile infrastructure, last mile delivery infrastructure, dynamic routing, etc. And so a lot is happening, such to the effect that the corner 7-Eleven that you might go to get something very simple, that might go away in a short amount of time, because the last mile might get to the point where it's more feasible for you to simply push a button on your refrigerator or make a call and have that toothpaste delivered to your door. Mm-hmm. Whereas right now, it's not cost effective to do so. So, and much of that came about because of smart technology.
Right.
For AI as a separate component, and maybe we can't separate it as a component. Maybe it's part and parcel of the whole thing. What kind of revolution do you see happening now or in the future that similar to the retail apocalypse we were touching upon? Do you see that would be almost entirely AI driven, such that what we think of today as being normal would be completely upended because of AI?
Well,
probably more than one thing.
You used a keyword, influence. So when we go to Google today and we do a search, what's the first answer we see? It's the Google AI generated answer that kind of explores the topic that you put in there.
Yeah.
Right. Going back to my email example of influencing that answer. And what you're seeing is micro influences, because the trends are, the reason Google's hopped on the AI bandwagon along with others is that people go to ChatGPT to research and identify solutions to their problems. Mm-hmm. Again, going back to how they're built, how did they get that information? And whatever AI gives them, it starts to influence their decision. Using your toothpaste example, I go and I run out of toothpaste. I go into ChatGPT, find me the best toothpaste for me. It says, okay, well, Aquafresh, Crest, and Colgate. Just boom, boom, boom. Okay. Aquafresh is my brand. It's like, oh, it's a great brand, good to go. But have you ever considered Colgate because it does X, Y, Z? Oh, I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Where I'm brand loyal because I've used this particular toothpaste forever. Now, all of a sudden, AI has micro-influenced my decision to consider something different. So what they're finding with AI search for AI-generated leads, they're well researched. They're to almost the purchase point. They're not in it. They rapidly went through an education, understanding of their problem, possible solutions. They've evaluated these solutions on AI, and now AI is saying we recommend this. Okay, it could be Amazon, it could be Walmart, it could be a whole nother brand type out there, but it's influencing that decision. Or as you mentioned before, it's influencing us, and we don't realize it. So there's an opportunity for business owners two ways. Business owners that are not embracing this opportunity, who are not educating AI so people can find their solution, are missing the boat. At the same time, those companies that get it and are starting to educate AI platforms about their brand and their solution are becoming the answer for people when they go to ChatGPT and ask a question. And I've used it like I was having an issue with my truck. It's giving me these symptoms. I put those symptoms into ChatGPT and like, what's going on? Well, this could be this, it could be that, it could be this, it could be that. Like, okay, where would I find an answer? I go here, this brand, where do I find the part? Amazon, O'Reilly, AutoZone. Well, it was giving me these answers with the pricing, with the factors, all these different things to the point of, okay, I'll pick this one because it's just down the street. But if Amazon was significantly cheaper, I would just order it, wait 24 hours, if not the same day now because of the last minute delivery right there. So it's an influencing things. And that's where business owners need to get on board with this. Ignoring it's not going to save your business. Waiting for it to mature, to say, I'll wait till everything's figured out and then I'll jump on that bandwagon. This bandwagon is moving. And it's starting out as a wagon, turning into a Studebaker. Now it's a Ferrari, and next week it's going to be a spaceship. And that's how fast it's moving.
Every element of what you were saying just now touches upon a factor of speed, an increased the increase or decrease in time required for decision-making cycle.
Right.
I remember when my parents, may they rest in peace, they immigrated from Iran to the United States in the 1950s. And based upon the technology at that time, using typewriters, writing letters, etc., they were able to function very well until the late 1990s, maybe, when the PC came on and they ignored that completely. It is maybe a momentary fad, like millions of other Americans have, and they never got on the bandwagon, such that when they got to the latter stages of their lives, the twilight stages of their life, they had become, and I try to say this as respectfully as I can, almost obsolete, almost like children needing help. And there are millions of Americans who are like that, but nobody likes to admit if they're an illiterate on anything like that. Now in the military, you and I are both vets. We both should be aware, I would suppose, of something called the OODA loop. It was a creation of a Colonel Boyd. I think his name was John. John Boyd, who was a ace in the Vietnam War, fighter ace in the Vietnam War, basically said that when you're in the air in a dogfight, there's no time to think. Right. You can't put together a task force to figure out what's the next best move. So the OODA loop, OODA, observe, orient, decide, act. I'm not the first to put my finger on this, that AI has reduced that cycle, but no one has ever seemed to, except for you just a moment ago when you alluded to this, no one has ever asked the question, even though AI has reduced this decision-making process, now who owns the observe phase? Who owns the orient phase and what is farmed out, what is parsed out, what is outsourced in this? In other words, do we still own this OODA loop process, or now is it pretty much out of our hands and we just receive the information?
What's of the observe, orient, decide, and act? Of those 4 steps, there's one step that you cannot delegate and you are ultimately responsible for, and that's the decision. And that's what we're talking about today in regards to AI ownership, is that decision. Who owns the decision at the end of the day? Because you can observe. AI will let you observe faster. AI will let you orient on the market faster. But ultimately, based on those 2 decisions, you have to make a decision that you're going to act on. Right? Then you can delegate the act piece. As a matter of fact, AI can act at the speed of millions in seconds, right? And a good example of, write 1,000 emails in 2 minutes and send them to your customers. But somebody has to decide what that content is. Somebody has to decide what that offer is going to be. Somebody has to make that decision, because ultimately as a company, you own that decision, right, wrong, or indifferent. And through delegation, or I should say ignorance that you mentioned earlier, CEOs, business owners are ignorant to the fact that their employees are using AI, whether they realize it or not, with or without direction from the CEO based on what that business wants to accomplish, simply for the fact that Microsoft and Google and any other platform they're using has already installed AI on there to make it easier to use their platform, but not realizing that that platform is learning about that business. And then something, that decision, observe, orient, it's just
Decide and act.
Decide, but you observe, an email comes in, you orient on the content of the email, and the AI writes a response. Somebody has to decide to send that response. Once that decision's made, yes, I'll send it, or yes, I'm going to edit it, it's out the door, it's gone.
So the decision can never really be outsourced.
The decision cannot be outsourced. And because they're responsible for the decision, they need to back into what are the rules of observation? What are the rules of orientation? What are the rules of response, potential act? So that when it starts to function at the speed of AI, which is astronomically fast, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. And so that's I've used that analogy before, trying to
OODA loop
to illustrate why people need to get on the bandwagon, and how this is an advantage for business that figures it out, and a disadvantage for businesses that choose to ignore it, or wait, or feel this isn't for my business. It's already there. It's already there. It's already being observed. It's already being used. Every time somebody goes on their phone and does a search, it's reiterating these types of things. And there's all kinds of strategies to do that.
I watched your lecture at UCF, University of Central Florida, on YouTube, and I thought it was fascinating.
Thank you.
Now, you a little bit earlier in our conversation, you happened to mention shadow AI, which you talked about there. You talked about two things that I wanted to bring up. One was shadow AI, and the other one was Jevons paradox. So now I really did watch it, right?
Yeah, I do, because nobody talks about that.
In shadow AI, obviously, I apart from the podcast, apart from whatever interest that my wife and I have, I also work because it gives me a reason to tie my shoes in the morning, right? And recently, I put together during lunchtime a white paper for my boss at work, and she thought probably, well, how did he ever do this? That he was able to produce something so comprehensive in 30 minutes time. Right. She didn't say that, but by her look, especially when she said she was going to share it with leadership, I knew it, right? Now, I didn't mention that I use ChatGPT, and it seems as though, as I look across the different aspects of business Americanus, it's there, like you said, but it's maybe perhaps just not seen as much as we think it is. No, but I'm getting a little bit off topic. Shadow AI, do you see this perhaps more as the fact that it's there as a governance failure, or do you think that the official systems are maybe too slow? Should official systems attempt to stop it, or do we need to redesign leadership to allow people to come out more out of the closet, let's say.
Correct.
Yeah.
I think the last point there is that leadership needs to embrace it and own it to develop the policies to give people rules on what they can and can't do. It is a governance issue. It's a control issue. And companies need to realize that, again, it's already the example you used before generated a white paper that was sent to the boss that she liked. And so she decided to share it.
Right.
So there was 2 points of decision in there. One, your decision to use it. The question I would ask is, okay, what influenced that content? What was in the thing? Good to go, boom. And then she accepted it.
Well, she thought it was fantastic.
So,
but of course, they were all my ideas, my observations. The AI, the ChatGPT arranged it.
But you had to know what correct was to know that was a quality paper.
Right.
But she accepted it, and then she forwarded it on, which then they are going to accept that. So now that's your new standard of performance is that.
Right.
Whether or not you have ChatGPT at your fingertips or not, that's your standard of performance, as well as you just set a standard of performance for the rest of your organization. So everyone else who's accountable to this leader has to meet that standard, or she's going to think that they are not at the right level, and they may need to find different opportunities, right? So now everyone hears that. Everyone starts to use AI. Meanwhile, goes back to the original question.
Maybe everyone's starting to use AI, but not admitting to it.
Correct.
Okay.
And so then you establish ownership. She's responsible for whatever she's responsible for. So now since she's responsible for that result, she should, if not realize quickly as a leader, I need to control that result. How do I give my team rules to leverage AI to get the results we're seeing here without compromising our company?
Right.
What can we share? What can we use it for? Because every time we ask AI a question, it gets smarter about the kind of questions for that topic. So even though you may never upload a policy, maybe never uploaded proprietary information, innocently saying, I didn't upload proprietary information. I didn't upload the policy. I just started using it. I started asking it questions. Every time you asked it questions, it got smarter because it's learning, going back to the speed of technology. And maybe something to talk about a little bit later is the speed of technology versus the speed of authority. And but that's the kind of point to think about. Once she decides to own it, that's why a business owner must decide to own AI. And it's not a project. It's a culture, it's behavior thing. And from there, then they can govern it to create the results they want. Realizing that they put more rules, get more wins, more great papers they can share, they're going to get faster and faster and faster. And then imagining that you get so fast, faster than the enemy in the OODA loop scenario, faster than the competition in your business, you are now operating faster than the competition. Another example, real estate companies, commercial real estate. I've worked with them a couple of times, and I'm actually getting ready to present to them in a couple of weeks. And through that scenario is that they put their marketing properties on the internet. All of a sudden, a retail buyer who's responsible for franchises, let's say Chick-fil-A, just because I like Chick-fil-A, and they have to find a location in this area. So they're going to go to the internet, say, I need to find this property with these specifications. And they're going to contact multiple brokers. And they're going to say, hey, I'm a Chick-fil-A. I'm looking for this kind of property. Send me your best. Well, the agent that can respond to that request the fastest and start working with that relationship. So that's the human piece that can't be replaced with AI. It starts to build that relationship faster than everyone else she contacted that day, right? Is going to start to win that business. And then even then, they start the conversation, say he sends her 10 properties. She can rapidly evaluate those 10. Okay, I want to see these 2. Do you have anything else? Well, the fact that she went from 10 to 2 gives him a refinement that he can now take to market research again to give her another list. So you start to build this relationship. So what he's doing by using AI is responding faster than all the other brokers who are not using AI. And so he's eventually going to win that deal, which in the retail space could be several $1 million, right? And so they want it speed. But then what's interesting is working with some real estate companies, large commercial real estate companies and other companies, they say, well, we're not quite so sure about AI yet. We need to think about it more, not realizing that their observe, orient, decide, act is slower than everyone else. And they're missing the boat. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's where, again, and even then you start to do this real estate, continue that example. He responds with 8 more properties. She goes through those, says, okay, these 2 are good. I'm going to add these 2. He does it again. They finally get to a reasonable list that she can actually look at when she comes into town. But he's already got that relationship. Mm-hmm. The chances that any other broker sent an email after him is almost irrelevant because they're probably shopping the same market. He's just faster at it. But now she goes to those 3 properties. 6. I like these 3. The next step is to create an offer memorandum to the brokers. Well, how quickly can they do that? Why? Because there's a lot of other potential restaurants, Chick-fil-A-esque type, looking for that same property. Boom, the faster they can get an offer memorandum created and sent, the sooner they can secure that deal. Versus, and marketing is a whole nother piece, but they've already done the marketing piece. It's already on the internet. It's already in their database. Now they're just responding rapidly to the client to do that with something that can't be replaced by AI, with this human interaction. I saw your email. I responded faster than anybody else. I gave you a better list faster than anyone else. I gave you an offer memorandum to those potential sellers faster than anyone else to where we're going to get the best deal so we don't have a lot of competition and get into a bidding war because we saw it before anyone else.
Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Right.
When you mentioned human interaction, do you think that might be the opposite reaction to the AI in terms of the fact that now we're creating a certain nostalgia, which makes its own market very much in the same way that young kids are going back to vinyl records, that there might be some kind of a backlash in terms of, or do you think not that's the wrong way to phrase it, because either way, the human interaction will integrate AI regardless?
It is now anyway. Probably a different example instead of vinyl records. That's even a good example. We went from vinyl records to tape cassettes. Now we're vinyl records to tape cassettes to CDs to streaming to where anyone can stream anything. And so the question we would ask is, well, why do they want to go back to vinyl? It's not the convenience of listening to the music, it's the quality of music, which is that human piece. But now, instead of them producing 1 million records to figure out which ones people will buy, they can go to Spotify and identify the most popular music on the digital platform to create a vinyl record that's going to be a higher quality experience.
A marriage of virtues.
Right? So now we're bringing it back around.
Right. So the kids may be returning to vinyl, but on AI terms. In other words, that they're able now, because I remember the old days, there might be on a vinyl record one song that I really liked, but I had to buy the whole damn thing.
Right.
And have all of those other songs that I didn't like, a one-hit wonder. And then if I couldn't find the 45, the little individual 45, I had to buy a big album and just remember to go to track 5 to listen to the song I really wanted to. And then that was it,
Or what was it? It's 8 cassette. It's 8 tracks too.
8 track, yeah.
And you had to push the button to find the favorite song.
Yeah.
So that's a great analogy on how to illustrate. I think the bringing it all together and how businesses they need to understand that this is happening.
Yeah.
I think the other thing I was going to mention is that experience alone with commercial real estate, it sets a new standard of service, right? That as other customers realize that there's a better way, they're going to ask and demand that way. Like streaming service and music is like, okay, I don't have to buy the record. I don't have to listen to 10 songs I never wanted to pay for anyway. I get the one I wanted. And so as that standard shift, which is going to speak to the Jevron's concept here, when we roll into that.
You've talked about AI in different types of businesses, different types of industries, different types of sectors. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people get into business, but the way that they communicate their type of business, I don't think that they really understand their business. I'll give you an example of who I think, for example, gets it really good, and then everyone else. Okay, let's say, for example, you and I want to buy a property, a piece of property, commercial real estate, residential real estate. Let's say residential, and so we go to see a lender. And then if you wanted to, let's say, interview the lender to see if you really this is the person you want to really deal with, not just on this deal, but maybe on future deals to establish some kind of longevity relationship. So you ask him, what business are you in? And he says, well, I'm in the business of loaning money to interested clients. As opposed to if he were to say, I'm in the business of fulfilling people's dreams, and then he paints a picture of a very happy family, having a barbecue in the back, swimming pool, which paints a completely different picture in the individual's mind. Most of them don't do that, okay? I remember years ago in the 1980s, you remember the company Vidal Sassoon, the hair salon. So they had a commercial where I think they really, really, really nailed it. They really understood what they were doing and who their customers were. They said, if you look good, we look good. Do you remember that? I think they really went for the jugular on that. Whoever did their ad there, I think really deserved everything they earned.
Right.
So now, both in terms of you're obviously a what I would call an AI doyen, an expert, a guru, a master consultant. However, how would you if you were to describe to people how you can help them, people, businesses, how you can help them, how could you put that in terms that would be both understood by a CEO and a locksmith?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the way we help businesses is to determine who owns AI in their company. Very simple. And the reason AI is so complicated, why is it that simple? The reason it's that simple is without ownership, you don't have accountability. And without accountability, you have potential for risk, mistakes. And mistakes at the speed of AI can be devastating to a company. And we talked before about technology outrunning the speed of authority. And 3 examples, remember Coke and New Coke? So for background is Coca-Cola, through taste testing, thought the market wanted a sweeter tasting Coke that tasted similar to Pepsi. And so they launched a new Coke. Within 79 days, they shut that down, went right back to Coca-Cola.
I remember.
Because they didn't understand the Coca-Cola is a lot more than taste. There's a brand, there's a feeling, everything that goes with that. Bring it a little bit closer to now, we had the Budweiser fiasco, where Budweiser, through the use of social media and allowing somebody to market their product that wasn't aligned with their customer base, lost number 1 position in the beer market, and how many know, and several millions of dollars in market share. Then the most recent example is Cracker Barrel, where they simply changed their logo. In one day, they lost $90 million in market value.
Honest to God.
So the point there is the speed of consequences, positive and negative. The negative we're using here for illustration purposes, but positive as well, is fast. And that's where AI goes back to.
And maybe even deadly.
Could be deadly for business, especially. You send the wrong email. You create 1,000 emails that go out in less than a minute to hit your customers. It's wrong. It's the wrong value. It's the wrong quote. And all of a sudden, like, hey, you sent me an email that said we can get it for 90 cents. And now you're telling me it's $1. No, I want 90 cents. And then you have to sell it for 90 cents. And that crushes your business, right? So that speed is there. And that's kind of what we need to be aware of as business owners and speaking to this particular part. Does that make sense?
It does, because it directly goes into what you were speaking about, the Jevons paradox over at UCF. However, I think we owe listeners an explanation of what the Jevons paradox is, because you know what it is. I know what it is, but I don't think most people do know what it is. So before I ask a question on that, could you just briefly, give me a plutonium version?
So the Jevons paradox is a way that when things become more efficient, they become cheaper. And a good example of that is oil. In that before, oil was expensive to get out of the ground, and then they figured out a way to get out of the ground cheaper, which made gasoline more affordable, which enabled to have a higher demand for gasoline. So it wasn't that oil became cheaper to where they lost profit on the 1 barrel of oil, is that by it becoming cheaper, they made more profit because more people could afford oil. And how does that apply to AI? Is that as things get more efficient, the price will come down, which will make them more affordable to a larger audience. Medical is a great example in that it used to, a radiologist, a human, had to go in and review the scans to make a decision to do that. Well, now AI can do that in a matter of seconds.
Blood typing.
Another great, medical is a great example for this.
You remember Elizabeth Holmes? With I forget the name of her company, but it was a big scandal. What she was proposing is now real. She just was too early.
She had to go to jail for it.
Yeah, she had to go to jail for it. But I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, but that's exactly the point. Medical is a great way to illustrate this, in that the fact that we can bring down the cost of the results of medical, that more people can get access to it, which is going to make them healthier, right? And same thing, and that's just using AI. So you can imagine that, other types of businesses where you can become more efficient, which allows you to expand your market without increasing your costs.
Now, where I see that fit in with the Jevons paradox is this. The fact that AI is helping to produce decisions much, much faster. Are we getting better decisions faster at more economically cheaper, or are we just getting a lot more decisions?
That goes back to the very first thing we talked about, AI ownership. Am I getting a better decision faster? I don't know. How did you train your AI to produce the decision in the first place? You may get better decisions faster, but you could also get bad decisions faster.
So it ultimately rolls back to the person who instructs the AI.
Who owns the result. And I would say owns the result, because an operator, I'm an operator, you're an operator. We do operations. I have no clue about the technology, but I'm responsible for the result. And because I'm responsible for the result, I'm going to make sure that the technology produces a correct result, which the software engineer, the AI application developer, has no clue about operations. They have to rely on me to tell them what correct is, and they program it correctly. So when people are shopping for a chief AI officer and they're looking at a technical background, they have the technical expertise to build systems, but they don't have the experience to understand the results the systems are putting in place. And that's where, people are like, well, AI is going to replace people. There's pieces of things we've talked about today that where AI will never replace a person.
Absolutely.
Right.
I use ChatGPT quite a bit. And ChatGPT is very, very good. But in terms of intuition, which evolution is developed in us with a million years of evolution, it has developed in us to be able to feel when something is not right. Certain sensitivities. AI is like a deaf man at a wedding, just doesn't know what the hell's going on. It's very useful, very useful, but in some areas it just doesn't get it. And that's at the point where I realized, HAL you remember HAL from the computer
2001
is not going to take over. It may become very, very influential, but ultimately HAL has to be told what to do. However, to contradict myself, I've noticed that ChatGPT also appeals to my ego. And there have been times when I have had to tell ChatGPT, I want a straight answer. I don't want you to try to appeal to my intellectual vanity. And then ChatGPT goes into another mode.
I use I call it the no yes man mode. Tell it very specifically, I don't need you to stroke my ego. I need you to tell me the truth right now. Well. Oh, absolutely. Because it's going to give you an answer no matter what. You and I can put in the exact same prompt, but because ChatGPT has a different experience with both of us, it's going to give us a different answer based on how we've asked it questions. Go back to the influencing conversation.
Such that, for example, I remember once on TikTok seeing someone who had a evangelical Christian site saying that he submitted the question to ChatGPT, which is the most superior religion. And of course, without any surprise, what the answer was. And I'm wondering if ChatGPT already knew that the author of the question was an evangelical Christian, and therefore ChatGPT configured the answer in order to please the individual who is.
It was probably not only their influence interacting with ChatGPT, but also all the other people that are interacting with ChatGPT right now. And one point I want to mention, we talked about UCF. One of the most surprising things I found about UCF sales, these are seniors getting ready to graduate and you go into the job market. how little they understand and can use AI. And the reason I make that point is that businesses now are looking to young people to solve this problem for them. They're young. They must know how to use AI. And this is more of a comment to those in the university, college level than the students themselves. And that these students who just spent 4 years and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars on an education are coming to the job market without an essential skill right now. And what's really even more surprising is that their professors are not enabling them to use AI.
Because so they see it as cheating.
They can see it as cheating. They don't understand it. Like many things, they don't understand it. They don't understand how it works. And using one example, we had an accountant in the room, and he goes, "Yeah, well, my professor said we can use it for one assignment to analyze one use case." Well, as a professor preparing people for the future, we should say, "Okay, I want you to analyze 100 use cases using AI, and you have 2 hours to do it." So you have to know what correct is, which goes back to what we were talking about. What is correct? So you have to know the knowledge. You can't just, say, okay, because if it gives you the wrong answer, it's still wrong, right? What is correct? And you have to understand how to use AI, because you can, going back to a business, you can 10x your company overnight without hiring new people. Because if you have the accountant, the CPA, the customer service, the sales guy can now do 10 times more work because they can do it faster and easier. So they're doing it faster. You're growing your company, and they're happier because they're doing more work, producing better results in less time, and they get to go home at night. So, preparing people to understand that it's here. You need to adjust to it and realize what AI can do. In other words, it can analyze 100 accountant business use cases in about 3 minutes.
Yeah. I found in the military, as well as in business Americanas, is that there's a common misperception that our thought processes can now be delegated to another element, AI, for example, or some form of smart technology. I don't have to spend my time learning it all. I don't have to memorize it all. And I think that they're getting themselves into trouble with such a binary way of thinking. Because here's the thing. Remember a little bit earlier, we're talking about those two departments that always somehow got off the hook, medical and IT. The more of an expert we become at something, we form these neural connections where we can recognize alternatives. We can recognize out-of-the-box thinking. We can recognize other solutions. Now, what good does that do if we can't distinguish what AI, the way that AI is speaking to us? People have asked the question, what if a lion could speak? Well, we wouldn't understand what the lion was saying because they have a completely different way of thinking and a completely different way of communication. So it's still you're still dealing with an incongruence,
Yeah. And what I say with that, is that how we train in the military, right? When we started, in a good way. So how does a general imagine the world and is able to make decisions that uses hundreds of thousands of people, thousands of vehicles in a coordinated way to accomplish a single objective?
Yes.
What got her to that mental state to make a single decision that knowing executes going to there?
Correct.
And that person's career started 40 years ago when they had to understand, how do I prepare 4 people to go to the field and survive?
It's the summation of experience. It's a summation of what they've learned. AI is definitely going to help, but they ultimately have to have the ability to recognize.
Correct.
To recognize. I'll put it in a different way. I've shared this analogy with others before. I don't think I've ever shared it on the podcast, though. Is if you and I, let's say, were in a hotel restaurant along with a lot of other people, and if someone was playing the piano while we were all eating, right? And then suddenly the pianist was Chopin or Beethoven was reincarnated into the pianist, right? Who would recognize that? Most people nowadays would just continue eating, burping, looking at the screens watching sports, and they wouldn't be able to recognize this sudden transformation to genius, right? And so yes, you can use external forces to come to a better solution, but ultimately, like you said in the OODA loop, you have to make the decision, which means that you have to recognize what decision is the appropriate decision. Now, you brought up something else when you were talking about the oil industry, and I thought about you. There's a TV series called Landman. Have you heard of it?
I have. Yeah.
One of my favorites. In the last episode, I thought it was the end, but evidently there's going to be another series. And so much of Landman revolves around wildcatting, right? And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to talk to Randy. And so you connected with the whole idea of IA, wildcatting. And I thought, if we apply AI to wildcatting, are we really lowering exploratory costs, or are we providing an illusion of certainty now that we have maybe more possible solutions? Because in essence, are we just still rolling the dice?
Well, if we think about Landman and his son, Cooper, found
You watch it too.
I know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And the point he made, even Billy Bob Thornton at the end made this comment that, what was it? He said that
he struck, like he's been correct 6 times in a row.
Right. He saw something that these multi-billion-dollar companies, with all their analysis and all their technology, didn't see. Right. But remember, that young man learned the patterns that the big dogs were teaching him, and then was able to recognize the patterns and see something different.
Make the neural links in terms of what he really needed to look for.
But because he saw something different, but what motivated him to do something different, right? And I think that's where we are with AI, in that their patterns, the AI is being trained. But then when you start to put these Beethoven, Chopin, Mozart, Amadeus, all these people into there's even something more special that can come out when you combine all these personalities. And there's AI music. Have you heard of it?
No.
They're making AI music now that understands what the different pieces, and this is beyond that may be another podcast opportunity for you to have, is with these, and they're at the Citrus Club, so you can tap into them.
Oh, right. We're members of the Citrus Club.
Yep, definitely. Come to E&I this Tuesday. Entrepreneurs and Innovators. There's a network.
Is it in the evening?
It's in the evening. It's from
we might just
5 to 7. And from there, there's people in that room that do AI music. In other words, they don't play an instrument. They create AI music. And they're successful. I mean, they're making money at doing this.
I think Hollywood is going to basically go away for the most part. It might become vintage because of AI. I think that the apparatus of maintaining very costly studios, these enormous contracts to actors and actresses who may be talented or their talent might not really be that high, but they're just popular or they're made popular. I think that AI might not be at that point yet, but I think it's coming, and I think it's coming quickly. Quite honestly, I think it's going to start with the adult film industry first, because it's much more low tech. And I think that they would be able to create programs, algorithms that could conform to individuals' fantasies. We'll leave it just at that. Such that, and not only that, but they could buy them in packages that would be untraceable, rather than individuals going to websites and then somebody monitoring them. And,
it was a dating podcast, and it was a podcaster who was trying to, and this is going to lead to an aha moment for a lot of people. And they were trying to relate to men to understand the current dating market. Based on how women are using ChatGPT. In other words, how are women asking ChatGPT about relationships and everything else? And this gentleman came up with a great prompt, which I've used for competitive intelligence, in that tapping into the collective discussion. Tell me how women perceive men in the current dating market. What are they seeing? And the key word there is tapping into the collective discussion, which means go fish in the bigger lake of data lake. Find me all the information right about this. So I'm not asking about a specific woman or a specific dating app or whatever it is, just understanding how women talk to ChatGPT that they're using it for relationships. he understood that enough to tap into the collective discussion to get a very specific behavior pattern that men need to adopt in order to be successful at dating, not only on the dating apps, but also in the human interaction piece of it.
Okay, so then that would be divided into what the women want to hear, and then what they actually want to hear, and how you're supposed to behave.
And so
because it's not always the same.
Correct. But
Right.
So he didn't restrict the AI to look at one or the other. He just said, using what you know, AI, ChatGPT, big brain, tell me what I need to know about this one thing.
Right.
Right. So the
Gives them
keyword
an advantage.
gives them a huge advantage. So for business owners who are looking to do market research or do certain things, and feel free to contact me if you want. But the key thing is tapping into the collective discussion. Find out more information about X, Y, Z. And then everything your employees are putting in there without your permission, everything that your competitors are putting in there, your competitors' employees are putting in there without their permission, you can now tap into.
Ultimately, it's a seduction, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is. If you know how to ask questions,
Yeah.
then you can find out pretty much anything.
Not just in dating, but pretty much everything.
And that's kind of the point, right?
Ultimately, it's a seduction.
And it's the white hat and the black hat.
Yeah.
The white hat is, as a business owner, you need to be putting the right information you want people to find, because that's where they're going to find that information. The black hat is that if you're looking to find information about your competitors on a deal, and there's other stories I could tell you about using this prompt that help people close deals, in that it came in there, and that's probably, one last story. I talked to a guy for 5 minutes, gave him a specific prompt. Based on that prompt, he used it to close a $12,000 deal.
Really?
And so I said, well, how long would it have taken you without that prompt? He said 6 hours. Well, how long did it take you with that prompt? 15 minutes, going back to OODA loop.
OODA loop, yeah.
Now you got your entire sales team educated in how to use AI with the appropriate guardrails.
Correct.
And they're making
Exponential.
15-minute decisions instead of 6 hours. Their sales cycles comes to 15 minutes versus 6 hours.
Like my white paper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's going so much faster. So if you're a business owner, if there's one thing to learn what I just said, if your competitors are doing 15-minute sales cycle compared to your 6 hour, 6 day sales cycle, how soon before they take your customers?
So ultimately, if I were to take all of our discussion of AI, business, retail apocalypse, logistics, the future, and if I were to put it into a laboratory test tube and put it into a nuclear centrifuge and spin it at ultra high velocity, the resulting plutonium, and that's not the way that plutonium is really made, but we'll use it as an example.
Okay.
It would actually be like uranium gas, but the resulting plutonium, as far as I see it, would come out. Do you remember that Revolutionary War flag, American Revolution, join or die? That's what it is. Businesses, if you don't join AI, you're going to die.
You realize it's here.
Yeah.
You realize it's already in your business.
Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah.
If you don't know where it is, definitely reach out to me and we can talk about how it's in your business right now.
Jake the plumber, you need AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's there. Because Jake the plumber, if you don't use it,
Yeah.
Roto-Rooter is using it to replace you, the Jake the plumber.
Absolutely.
So I heard Don Carlos. What's the story behind that?
They're actually, it's not a name that I made up, actually, Randy. In the summer of 2009, I was deployed to Iraq. I served in Baghdad as well as Anbar province. And I've always had, I wouldn't say always, but since I started military deployments, I became a cigar aficionado. Now, on Friday nights, sometimes on Saturday nights too, in Baghdad, myself and others, mostly myself and the boys, we would gather at one of Saddam's palaces. This one, the one in particular I'm thinking of, was the Al-Fa Palace, spelled Al, A-L, hyphen F-A-W. It was the name of a peninsula in Iraq where a great battle occurred during the Iran-Iraq War, where the Iraqis won. So he named the palace Al-Fa. It sat on a lake with this huge carp. And there were stories about the carp too, in terms of what they ate as well. And then all around the palace were these residences, very nice residences of individuals who were very close to him, party members. So we used to go there. We used to smoke cigars as well as use the lake as a golf golf range. He wouldn't be very happy if he knew what we were doing.
Right.
And sometimes in almost pitch darkness, we'd sit up on top of the palace and smoke cigars there as well. And so I'm very talkative. I think you noticed. I'm very talkative. And back then I was talkative too. And I would talk about cigars. And so the guys, they gave me that as a nickname, almost in the same way that you'd give a fighter pilot a call sign.
Right.
They gave me the nickname or call sign of Don Carlos, and it stuck. So much so that when I was getting ready to leave, they presented me with a beautiful wooden humidor that was engraved, and I still have it. I still have it, where they were wishing me, Don Carlos, a good journey home. So that's where the name came from.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Is that your favorite cigar? Not Don Carlos cigar, or what's your favorite cigar?
My favorite cigar, it's basically it would be a Nicaraguan blend with a Nicaraguan wrapper. I like Drew Estates. I like the copper label that Drew Estates has, and there's a few other brands that I like too. Most of the cigars that I really like, I can only get on the internet. Cigars are very much like wine. You could have an expensive one, and you could have a cheaper version, but it doesn't mean that you prefer the more expensive version because of taste, because of price, because of name recognition. It all comes down to taste, really. Yeah,
I prefer a really dark cigar.
Oh, you're also an aficionado.
Yeah, I like really dark, really full flavored cigar. Not the light ones that are kind of like a very. I don't want to use the word weak because they're different tasted, but I like the really strong dark cigars.
I never really enjoyed smoking until I had a deployment to Djibouti, Africa, almost for 2 straight years, 2006 through 2007. And it was a Marine major. He was a combat engineer. He introduced me to cigars. And I wouldn't necessarily...
What was his name?
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember.
We probably served you.
It was a long time ago. I wish I remembered his name. But he introduced me to cigars. And the appeal of the cigar was the taste. I like the panache of the cigar. I like the fact that it became communal, conversational. It's not like a cigarette that you just take a few quick puffs and then you crush it underneath your boot, and then you go back to work. You smoke a cigar for the experience as well as for those who are around you. And the other thing I really liked about smoking cigars was there was a certain leveling democracy, where if you go into a cigar lounge, it's not uncommon to find the CEO of a company sitting next to a locksmith, smoking cigars and talking. And you wouldn't find that kind of dynamic anywhere else.
There's a cigar lounge just down the street from the Citrus Club.
Really?
There is. It's next to a coffee shop, and it's got all kinds of, I think it's Colorado cigars. That's right. Just go down, walk a block to the west.
You know what, Randy? I have much to learn from you.
But yeah, there's definitely, and then once in a while, at the Citrus Club in the spring and the fall, they'll do a cigar, steaks and cigars. They'll do it on the 5th floor outside. You're
not married, are you?
No.
Okay.
Not anymore. No.
Reason is because Chandra really likes the Citrus Club, and so I was thinking maybe in terms of maybe making this. Doing some activities together, perhaps in the future.
Citrus Club's a great organization. Shout out to the Citrus Club for sure. Yeah. But I've been there. I've been building this business through the Citrus Club. The people I've been meeting there, and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, that led me to 1 million cups, which led me to Rebecca, and 1 million cups would be number 2. It's just been a great. I want to say like a sounding board, a focus group of business owners, because you go in there with
1 million cups.
1 million cups.
I've never heard of that.
That's where we met.
Really? Okay.
It's on Wednesdays all over the country.
At the Citrus Club.
Well, this one's they're different locations. They have 1 million cups is from the Kauffman Foundation, and it was created to bring entrepreneurs together with the concept of we drink a cup of coffee together and we share ideas. Okay. And the idea is you go there with your business idea. It can be anywhere within the first 5 years of business, from a startup to maturing, growing, and you go and you give your business idea. And then the room, as other business owners and other entrepreneurs, give you feedback. Like, your idea doesn't make any sense. Or have you thought about this? Hey, I need to connect you with that. Hey, I can help you with this. And that's really, really good.
The vast majority of our podcasts or in English, in the English language. But now we've increasingly been producing more episodes in Portuguese because Orlando has a very vibrant Brazilian business community. And I'm wondering if they might be interested in AI.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's
Maybe
actually
we can do some intros.
with there's several people at the Citrus Club at Brazil. There's one gentleman I'm thinking right off the bat. He's a real estate investor.
We know him. I don't remember his name. I know. I think I met him once, but I know of him more through my wife's association with business groups.
Now, there's two. There's one that's well known, has a podcast and does everything. There's another guy who just came from Brazil, so maybe a different. But
I think we know both of them.
Yeah. So, but going back to Brazil, right? There's just a huge culture at the Citrus Club that are Brazilian. They're all Brazilian, all about there and everything, and they all smoke cigars. Yeah, and all good there. So you need to come to Citrus Club some more.
You gave me a few illuminating moments there, and I'll end it with something that'll put a smile on your face. It's a joke. It's a joke, but it's related. Okay, so one time this guy's from Las Vegas, right? An older guy. He's leaving Las Vegas in an old Cadillac Eldorado. You remember those older version? They were like a ship. And to turn it around, you needed to go the entire half circumference of the street just to turn it, right? So he's leaving Las Vegas. He's leaving those signs, welcome to Las Vegas. And all of a sudden he hears this voice, right? That says, go back to Las Vegas, go back to Las Vegas. And so he thinks this must be an omen, so he turns the car around because he's, to hear a voice telling him to go back to Las Vegas. Only good can come from it, right? So he starts driving back into Las Vegas, and then the voice again says, go to Caesar's Palace, go to Caesar's Palace. So now he's getting really excited, right? So he goes to Caesar's Palace, parks the car, and when you close the door, how it just doesn't have that neat closure like it does nowadays, but it's like a metal against metal. Right. So he goes into Caesar's Palace, and then the voice tells him again to go to the roulette table. So he goes to the roulette table, and then the voice tells him to bet all of his earnings, all of his winnings on Black 13. So now he's really excited. The wheel spins, the wheel spins, the wheel spins, and it lands on Red 5. And then the voice says, how about that?
Right?
So this was for me a how about that moment, but in a good way.
Right.
A moment ago, you said you were talking about people getting into contact with you, and I think it's about that time. If people want to get into contact you, want to contact you in terms of how you can help them in their businesses, what would be a good way of contacting you? If you're comfortable with telephone, that's fine. Email.
Best way is LinkedIn. Randall Mauldin. That's probably the best way.
Are you on Instagram?
Nope. It's Instagram, all the different social medias. It's
too social, right?
It's just I spend more time scrolling than I do creating content that needs to be out there.
I can understand that because LinkedIn is entirely business. Well, not entirely. I've seen plenty of posts there that had nothing to do with business. But
if they want to contact me, LinkedIn is the best way, because usually it's safe for both sides, right? They can actually look at my profile, check me out, and then we can make sure that everything's good to go.
The way this conversation is going, we could probably continue on for at least another hour, and at the end of it, when you compile what we said in written form, it would be like a book of more than 10 feet thick. But all good things need to come to an end, I suppose, right?
Eventually, yeah.
I really enjoyed our discussion today. Thank you so much for coming. I wish you well, and I hope that we can continue our communications in the form of a friendship.
Absolutely, James. I think it'll be great.
Thank you so much for coming over. I really do appreciate it. It's really been an honor speaking with you, meeting you.
Absolutely, especially as a fellow vet.
Absolutely.